This show is brought to you by Databril, the scalable Amazon PPC management for large Amazon sellers and brands. Visit sellersessions.com/agency for more details. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. In this episode, we bring in Nick Katz to chat about Japan. So, Mr. Japan guy, do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, my name is Nick Katz. I'll give a quick intro. I've been in Japan for over 20 years now. Came in 1995. And I've been selling on Amazon for a few years. And I've been in the retail industry since the end of the 1990s, both brick and mortar and online. And on Amazon, I sell mainly in Japan, the UK, and Germany. And I kind of specialize in Japan. So I do some more consultancy and speaking about Amazon Japan.
Excellent, which brings me on to the point. The reason or how we met was at the private label days in Germany in May last year, and you were doing a presentation on Japan, which that's where we got excited about going into Japan ourselves last year. Well, I think we launched in about August time. But let's just break down the key facets of Japan. And the first place we should start with is identifying and then sourcing a product. Tell me how it's
right. Okay, so if you want to find a product, so product selection is probably the biggest hurdle that people have. I've spoken to quite a lot of people, helped quite a lot of people come into Japan, and a lot of those people are kind of good sellers who are doing very well in other markets, Europe or America. And I've seen the biggest problem they have with Japan is choosing the right product. So Japan it's the third largest market, so behind America, behind Germany, and ahead of the UK. But the UK, Japan, and Germany, although they're the biggest after America, they're much, much smaller than America. So a product that sells 10 or 20 units a day in America, if you try and launch that same product specifically in Japan, or that could be the same for the UK, you'll only be selling, 1, 2, 3 a day. So you've got to be careful of the products that you choose. So you really have to look into the size of the category that you are selling in. If you want to sell a product that you are already selling, I am assuming you're not going to be starting off with a product directly for Japan, although that's probably what you should do. So the way to do that is there is a tool. Should I talk about tools?
Yep, go on.
So historically, there aren't really any tools there weren't very many tools to help you sell in Japan, especially for PL sellers. It was always kind of hard, but the last couple of years, there's a tool called Amasheti. And Amasheti is it's kind of, if people have used Jungle Scout, it's the same kind of thing. It's like an overlay on your screen, and it will show you how many products a day are selling, and it will show you the BSR. So Amasheti is absolutely crucial if you want to have a look at kind of sales volume for the product that you're selling. And to give you an idea of what kind of products are selling as well, that's another biggie. There are whole categories that just will not sell in Japan. But on the flip side, there are whole categories that wouldn't sell in America that sell really well in Japan. So that's something you probably want to look into.
Okay, so just for me, I'll break that down slightly. Is what you're saying is don't just look at your own catalogue and willy-nilly launch into Japan, expect the same kind of thing. The irony of selling in Japan is the products you sell in Japan is the complete opposite of all the other marketplaces. We all have a good laugh about spatulas and compression socks and these kind of products, garlic presses, for instance. These are the type of products that you should be selling in Japan because that's the kind of products that the Japanese market will support. So it's more like ubiquitous products rather than deep diving into a niche.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the products that you can sell in Japan will normally be more kind of well-known products. So often it's more kind of, personally for me, more kind of interesting products. If you've got your own kind of hobbies or sports that you like doing, you could probably do a product that's fairly well known and sell it in Japan, whereas you wouldn't be able to do that anymore in America. You have to go really kind of subcategory. In Japan, it's more, as you said, kind of ubiquitous products that are fairly obvious, products you see around a lot. I mean, I get a lot of my product ideas just walking around Tokyo, for example. I walk around, I look what people are holding, what people are using on the trains and restaurants. And those are the kind of, I mean, products you see every day are products you can sell in Japan.
Yeah.
That's why it is, I mean, for me, it's more fun. The products that I sell, because, they're not like really niche products. It means that, friends of mine can use them and friends of mine do use them. And I'll be out somewhere and I'll see somebody who may have one of my products. And that kind of makes it more fun for me as well.
Cool.
And but it is a very different mindset to certainly America.
Excellent. So let's look at the next stage. Let's look at translations. From my point of view, and much more about this, you speak the language, is that I not learned the hard way. I still spent $300 or $400 getting a listing done, but I then got someone else to redo it, which end up being better in terms of conversions. And from my understanding, you had the listing written from the ground up, and you take on board the person that's writing it. You're looking at a technical standpoint and the cultural standpoint as well. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways of doing listings. And I mean, there's something I should probably mention. I mean, although Japan it does seem like a very, very different market from other markets. It's not. I mean, essentially, it's kind of similar to it's similar techniques. When you're writing a listing, you should keep things concise. You shouldn't try and overstuff and make it hard to read. That's pretty much the same anywhere. But maybe the style of writing is probably closer. I mean, I sell in Germany, and I've noticed it's very similar in Germany. There's no real fluff and fun. It's more kind of informative. And that's probably how you want to do a Japanese listing. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you are going to need someone to do a Japanese listing for you. You can just get like a Japanese friend to do it. But then, as you mentioned, if they don't really know how to do copy, which is obviously a hard thing, even for native speakers, writing good copy is not an easy thing. But I mean, you're going to have to be involved and make sure whoever's doing it understands about getting, keywords in the title, in the bullets, and make sure make sure it's done well. But you don't have to do it, straight off the first time. You can get a listing up. And obviously iterate on it. I wouldn't worry too much about that at the beginning.
And in terms of Japan, when we went in last year, the enhanced brand content was pretty much standard. So we should probably talk about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's called A+, or it's called A+ in Japan, which now A+ is called something different in America. Although actually the Amazon Sell Essential is a bit messed up. It says A+ in some places and enhanced brand content in others. But it's always been there in Japan for every level of seller. Well, it has for the last few years that I've been there anyway. So we have always had it. So there's always big thing about it coming out in the other markets. I mean, it's still, the jury's out on exactly how useful it is.
Yeah.
But there are some features that we get. Certainly, obviously, you should be using it anyway. I mean, it's a waste not to use it. You should, if you've got a brand, you should be explaining your brand there. That's something we should probably touch on as well. Coming to choosing products, it's always good to use your foreignness. That's a word. I'm not quite sure it was a real word, but
yeah.
So
I was going to get into that because the lifestyle images and things like that, and branding of your photography. Do you change it for the market, or do you have it that you're authentic because this is a US brand or a UK brand?
Yeah, if you're a US brand or a UK brand, you want people to understand that you are a US brand and you are a UK brand. This is the way that you can compete with like the very strong Chinese sellers. Yeah. Because you are able to and obviously the enhanced brand content is where you would put your photos and your explanation in there, or if you've got brand registry, then you can use storefront. But yeah, you want to show that you are a foreign brand. It's always good for lifestyle photos to kind of use foreigners in that. Although that is kind of product dependent. If you're making clothing or something, you may want to show it on a Japanese body to see that it does fit them. But yeah, no, you want to use the fact that you are a foreign brand. That is going to be your biggest, your strongest selling point. So you certainly at least want to use enhanced brand content to really hit that home. Yeah, tell the story. Yeah,
tell the story. The other interesting thing, let's talk about reviews, the psyche behind the reviews, and let's compare garlic presses from the US to Japan and salad spinners. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So like, I mean, when it comes to reviews, I mean, I used to say Japanese don't leave reviews, but I think nobody leaves reviews. I mean, because you can't really ask, it's not as easy to ask for reviews now for obvious reasons, especially with email feedback sequences becoming less and less
Relevant.
relevant. You can't really use them as much. Like half of them are bouncing. People are just finding out that actually nobody really leaves reviews. I mean, but that is product dependent. There are a lot of products. If somebody really likes a product, Japanese people will actually leave quite a lot of reviews. If it's a fairly functional product, like a stapler or something, they're probably not going to, but they're probably not going to in any other market either. Yeah. But because there generally are way less reviews left in Japan, it means you don't need a lot of reviews to compete. You don't need 1,000 reviews. If you've got 5 to 10, I mean, 10, you're golden. 5, you're okay. You want 1 or 2. But yeah, I'm finding the same in other markets. I mean, I'm finding it very hard to get Germans to leave reviews as well. But again, you don't need as many to compete.
Yeah, and I think that also, again, comes down to the type of product. And is it a functional product, or is it a sexy product that people want to leave reviews on? But
if it's something that people have like an affinity to, then they will be more likely to leave a review.
So the point I was going to get to is that, let's just say a garlic press in the US might have, the bestseller might do 3,000 reviews.
Yeah.
But in Japan, they might have 65 reviews.
Yeah.
Two images.
Yeah. I had that as like so like last year in Germany, I was giving my presentation. We actually had that kind of quiz, didn't we? I made it like a game. How many reviews for this product? Yeah, it's like a top. Yeah, it's like a top garlic press with thousands of reviews in America, and it will have like 30 or 40 in Japan. It is actually obscene. I mean, every year Amazon at the end of the year they release their rankings, like top products in each of the categories, and I love going through that. And you will get like the top product in a subcategory, and it will have 15 reviews. I kid you not. It will be the top. It will be the number one product in. I'm not talking sub. I'm talking subcategory. And like even the top 3 together could have like 50. It's like it's almost unbelievable.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It is. So you have to be careful.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be careful if you don't use something like Amasheti. If you just look at listings and see like 20 reviews, don't assume it's not selling. That's a bit dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the thing, we're not here to plug Amasheti. It's just it happens to be the only
It's the only thing that works. Yeah, it is the only. There is no choice.
Yeah.
I'm not an affiliate either, but they don't. Yeah. I mean, there is no other choice, and it's. I think you'd kind of be crazy to look at a market you had no experience with no figures to back up your thoughts.
Yeah, no, totally. Right. So we've covered sourcing the product, the type of products, and what to do in terms of finding the product on the minimalist tools that we have at our disposal. We've talked about translation. We've talked about reviews. We talked a little bit about the culture. Let's get into this super high cost of Japan in terms of storing an FBA.
Okay, so yeah, Japan has the highest storage fees of all the markets I'm in. I mean, I'm only in 6 at the moment. I'm not in America, but I know it is higher than certainly America as well. The fees are very high. The fees are going to actually go up again. I think it's the end of April. Amazon's changing the way that they set the fees. It's not going to be media and non-media anymore. It's just small, medium, and large, and then plus a kilogram or whatever kilogram fees. And the fees have gone up yet again. So, I mean, it is a good idea to try and use the kind of closest you can do to a just-in-time system, which is what I want, which is the way that I do it. I have my own warehousing, and I send in products fairly regularly and try not to keep too much stock. Yeah. That might be difficult when you first start out, but there certainly are warehouses that you can use. Yeah. And it's not expensive to ship into Amazon itself, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, last year it used to be free, but now they charge you.
It was free for a whole year, and it was absolutely. Yeah. I got a warehouse then. I changed my model completely, and I only it was to send in. I should explain. It's to send in from within Japan. Yeah, not internationally. From within Japan to any FBA center was free, which was just I was sending it every single day because there was a 5-box limit, but it was amazing. But that's gone now.
Exactly. But, you can use, there's a company out there that I used was JWire, which is a guy called Takeyomi. I'll put that in the show notes. There's a good example there because it's almost like a one-stop shop. They acted as the import of record. They utilise a larger company to do our shipments coming into Japan. They act as our warehousing. So we're stored on pallets. I think it's like $30-40 a month or less per pallet. And then they would have handling, then shipping into Amazon on our behalf, which was far, far cheaper than storing Amazon themselves. So people shouldn't be put off by them high costs, because there is a workaround. You just use the third party.
Which is the way people are kind of looking to do now, and I'm doing that now. For example, in the UK, I mean, you should be using third parties if you're going to do it smart. So it's not a massive hurdle, but it is one more thing that maybe you want to think about down the line. Maybe just test with one box, send that straight into Amazon. Just use DHL, UPS, whatever. Get something in, see how it goes. And if you find a product that's selling, or a product you want to start and send in more quantity, then you probably should use someone like Take that you mentioned, that does everything. They do your importer of record, which is something we should mention. When you send in a product into FBA, or actually into Japan, you have to have something called an importer of record. And it's just it's a name and address of somebody in Japan, and it's for customs to contact if there is a problem, which there normally isn't, but there has to be one recorded. So if you send in a product to an FBA center, to a fulfillment center in Japan, and it doesn't have an importer of record listed, Amazon will not be your importer of record, so they will return the product. So every shipment you normally pay for someone to be your IOR, and the guy you just mentioned, Take, his company is $50, which I think is fairly standard. So it's an extra $50 cost per shipment.
The other thing in terms of shipments as well, just be careful, and you're more experienced than I with this, but we got caught out a couple of things. We had issues with some labeling, so we got pulled over from for inspection. So they had us apart their storage for 3 days, so that was quite expensive to go through that, because of clarity on the labels, even though they were good, they come off the boxes or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, or they got dirty, so we got pulled over for X-ray and stuff. So that was a bit of a nightmare to deal with. And I found that one of the best ways to optimize is to make sure that you don't necessarily use a shipping agent for on the Japanese side, or if you do, you understand the lay of the land there. Some people, what they're doing is they will optimize for using, say, a company in China and just use Japan for the clearance, and that's become more cost effective. I mean, we found that from quotes that we got, and we utilized our UK company to try and get to the bottom of it, because they had a partnership in Japan. And then you can almost pay like an idiot tax if you're not careful, because he said there was a list of items, like on the breakdown of their quote, that he's been in the shipping business for 30 years, and he had to ask them, what is all of this stuff? I've never seen it before. Have you come to have any of those kind of experiences?
Yeah, I haven't done anything as bad as that. I mean, I haven't even had a kind of, I have inspections sometimes for new products, but I've never had like an X-ray or anything. But I have been importing for over 20 years in Japan. So the customs know me and know my company. So kind of on a bit kind of better ground, or kind of a better standing. Yeah. But so there are a couple of things to mention there. I mean, one, again, if you're just going to test out the Japanese market, this isn't something to worry about, because you'll just be sending in a box or two or something. Obviously, depending on the size of your product, just use one of the big carriers. But if you are going to ship in a bit more quantity, then I do recommend that you use a company who has experience in sending into Japan.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all freight forwarders have done Japan, but if you ask any Chinese freight forwarder, they will say, "Oh, yeah, we can do that." It's like dealing with getting a product made. Oh, yeah, we can make that. But you got to kind of be careful. And something else I will actually mention, though, is that there aren't very many, for example, Chinese companies that actually who are actually on the ground in Japan. So there will be a handover. So the two ways of doing it will be, for example, if you're going from, I'll say China, because I'm assuming most people are sending products from China. But if you're going from China to Japan, then you can either use a Chinese company, but they will then be using a Japanese person to move that to the warehousing, for the clearing, and then see those costs that you were given, the high cost, that's probably that's internal, that's the Japanese costs.
That's right.
going from the
Exactly.
port to the warehouse or to the fulfillment center. That's
I was
what
gonna,
costs.
yeah, I was going to say the trucking fees were astronomical, but there was other
Yeah,
stuff on there as well. So it pays to optimize where you ship into. Let's
yeah.
also not forget the upside of working with Japan is 7 days by sea. I'll say that again: 7 days by sea from China to Japan, which is incredible in terms of
It
if you
is.
want to turn stock.
Yeah, it is very fast. Well, actually, I think it's about 3 days on the water. But then obviously you got customs on both sides, and you've got
Yeah,
but that's so. For example, if you're sending a full container, it's incredibly quick. If you're doing things like LCL, like less container loads, then
mm,
they have to fill it up. So it probably will be 2 weeks. But even then, it's 2 weeks,
yeah,
and that's kind of pretty much that's leaving your supplier to arriving in Amazon.
yeah.
Boat is incredibly quick.
Yeah, which leads us to another thing. One of the dominants of the market are actually the Chinese and the factories as well. There are
Yeah,
quite a lot of Chinese in the market, and they understand because it's pretty much next door the culture as well. So you do have some competition there in terms of the Chinese.
oh, certainly.
So that take that into consideration, like the products that you do. Um, Premium products could work quite well because in case the mindset quite common with the Chinese is that they want to give you a lower price product, which means that the product quality could be lower. So a differentiation there could be that you do a high end product, and the thing is the Japanese like good quality.
Yeah, and also the Japanese, a kind of distortion that they've got where with like the products that they use. I was reading one this morning. If a Japanese person gets a product and they don't like it, they'll go, "Oh, it's Chinese, the bloody Chinese," or write this in the reviews. Like they don't realize that their iPhone is not from it's not from America, right? But yeah, so Japanese people do like high quality, but unfortunately they don't like to pay for it. They're not stupid.
Yeah,
They're not going to throw money around, and especially Amazon actually isn't. It's not where the high price products are yet. You certainly can try and kind of notch up your level to the well compared to like obviously the very cheapest products, but you can't just slap a high price and expect to sell, especially on Amazon.
yeah,
So Japanese kind of own this kind of weird kind of space between wanting really high quality, not wanting to think it's from China, and it not being too expensive. So you have to show a lot of value,
yeah. So
that's where the whole branding thing comes in again.
a decent product at a fair price is what.
Decent product at a fair price. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's yeah.
I was going to say, next thing we haven't spoken about is marketing. So we haven't spoke about PPC. So a quick thing from my experience is that one of the big lessons I learned on the product that we launched into Japan, it was a one horse race. There was literally one keyword that worked. Nothing else was the selling keyword. I couldn't get variants off that keyword to work. And it was difficult to operate. Give me an example on the desktop. This main keyword, which everyone was going after, was $6 or $7 a click, roughly. My ACOS was like 2,500% or something from memory. Crazy. They would only appear at the bottom of the page, different on mobile, of course, but it would literally there was no top ad slots. But on longer tail keywords, there were, but those longer tails didn't convert. So one of the things we did, because there's no services over there, we done Facebook ads. We built our own WordPress site. We use a coupon server for the codes, the distribution. We got the translation. So we done the ads in Japanese, landing page in Japanese, follow-up email, etc. And that's how we were able to get off to the races over there. So I did get into AMS, and then we got released from AMS because they weren't happy with our paperwork, which is a bit more in depth over there when you're trying to get into Vendor Express. We're going back last year now. Are you using...
Yeah, so no, I had an AMS account. I've actually got a problem with it now, so I can't actually use it right at the moment, unfortunately. But no, I have used AMS beforehand in Japan, and I use headline ads as well. Coming back to the PPC, it's actually quite interesting the thing you mentioned about having like a $6 click, because I've never actually seen a high, like what you would consider kind of American level pricing. I've never actually heard that.
But I know why that is. It's because I was in a category which the money keyword was that keyword, and
Right.
everyone was going after that keyword. And because
Right.
there's no ranking services over there, people were blasting on the PPC. So the cost per click was going up and up and up, because that's the only way that people can complete and get any form of visibility prior to launch. That's why it's so. I think we just landed on a very unique situation, because from my understanding from other sellers, cost per clicks can be anywhere from 35 cents to $2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in some pretty kind of crowded, popular categories, and keywords for me, if it's $1, it's high.
Yeah.
And I'm in some other pretty major categories, and like the keywords are down to like 40, 50 cents American equivalent.
Yeah.
It is, and these are for pretty much seed keywords or close to seed keywords.
Yeah.
That's why I was kind of surprised you had such a high one. But yeah, you obviously had a particular situation there.
It goes down to the same thing, is that not everything that you want to achieve will work, and not every channel will give you the same kind of results. So you have to find these other results. The reason I know it was a one-horse race is because when I got into AMS for that short, brief period before they pulled up on the paperwork, was that when we run the keywords, the high, medium, and low, we could see in there what was working, and we can also see from our PPC data what was working. So on reflection, we would have probably not gone with that product for Japan. We would have sourced something else.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't touched upon is consumption tax. And so as I understood it, and I'm not an accountant, I gave up in the end because I was chasing the rainbow, trying to get to the bottom of this whole thing. And I literally swallowed it as a product cost, as a non-Japanese company. How do you deal with it?
Okay, so the way I deal with all the payments, tax payments I have to make are going to be very different from other people for two reasons. One, I have a Japanese company. For my sales in Japan, that goes to my Japanese company, so I'll have kind of tax ramifications that you won't have as a foreign seller, and also the amount I'm selling. If you're over the 50 million Japanese mark, which is $500,000, the way that the consumption tax is paid is also different. So with consumption tax, which is the Japanese equivalent to whatever, you call it VAT in the UK, it's 8%. Just say that straight off the bat, it's 8%. But so you have consumption tax at various different points. So you got tax, for example, on your seller central fees, your PPC fees. So I get 8% on top of that. If you are a foreign company, if when you make your account, you have an address that's not in Japan, you don't have to pay those fees. You actually get the bill without the 8% included. So that's one advantage you get being a foreign seller. And then when it comes to the VAT, I should also mention I'm not an accountant, but when it comes to the VAT on your sales, nobody has to pay for the first 2 years anyway. You pay, so on your third year, you go back 2 years and pay your first year then. But you won't have to pay any VAT until you reach 10 million, which is equivalent of about $100,000 in sales. You won't have to pay then. And it does look very much like if you're a foreign company, you won't even have to pay it then either. And I know that kind of sounds almost impossible, but I've been through a lot of accountants, including the company I use, which is a very large accountancy. And they say that even they're not sure. It's this very gray area. It's very likely that you won't have to pay. So either way, you won't be paying for 2 years, and you won't be paying until you are at 100,000 US anyway.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So tax-wise, it's pretty sweet. Although for me, because I'm in Japan, corporation tax is 33% here, so I get done that way.
Cool. Right, let's just quickly round it off here before we go. So first thing, select a ubiquitous product or something that's got sales volume. Make sure you're utilizing a tool like our Machete to check that it's viable. Don't just dip into your catalog and expect it to sell. Yeah. Then we've got translation. From my point of view, technical, culturally, full translation of the listing, include the enhanced brand content because it comes free, and then be able to tell your story and make sure you get your brand across because it's valuable in Japan. that you are a, say, US or a UK company. Yeah?
Yep, exactly.
7 days via sea in most cases from China. Don't store in the don't store in FBA. Utilize the prep center. I'll leave show notes out. Actually, I've got a spreadsheet that I've got a list of services and stuff from former presentation. I'll add that in the show so people can just download that. And that covers shipping companies, translations, etc. So yeah, make sure that you understand your shipping costs. Don't screw up the labels like I did, because you might get pulled over for X-ray. That costs you money, costs you time. If you can optimize your time in terms of the distance between where you're bringing the shipment in from and your prep center, that's good, because trucking costs could end up being quite high. Store on pallets in your prep center. The one thing we forgot to mention, it's a really big one, customer service. Let's quickly talk about that.
Customer service in the native language is actually a requirement for Amazon in every marketplace. So if you're selling in Spain, you are supposed to be providing customer service in Spain. So obviously in Japan, you are supposed to provide it in Japanese. It's something you're going to have to, I mean, some people kind of use the Google tools. I mean, I said in Germany, and I've got a German VA. If you're serious, I recommend getting either a VA or, for example, I think we mentioned Takeomi's company. They do, I don't know how they work it.
I'll tell you how they do it. They do a flat fee. You do a flat fee per month if that's worth it. You might, let's just say, I don't remember the numbers, but let's just say it was as little as $50, right? Per month, and then they'll answer all the questions for you. But
it's not a lot, that's for sure.
If you don't get any questions really, they'll pick up ad hoc. Then it's $10 a response. The chances are when you launch, it's going to be very little. Once the conversation's got going, because you can have some standard templates made, and then they can be the first set, you know, if they want an invoice or they've got a product question, here's a FAQ, you can get away with that. But then if you start the conversation, you can point out that you are English speaking, and do you please understand we're using Google Translate. So you've got many different options, because I think that's what the hurdle comes in. Oh, I'm scared of C-tax, or I haven't got customer service, therefore I can't launch. You know, or the shipping costs, the FBA costs are very expensive, so therefore there's plenty of workarounds.
Yeah. I don't think it certainly isn't insurmountable. And if you're, for example, if you're an English or an American seller and you're selling in Germany, you've already worked your way around those anyway. You get a lot less contact from customers in Japan. I will say that. I mean, we sell pretty high volume, but we don't get that many emails. So it's not really a massive problem. I mean, it might be an idea to use a VA that you're paying hourly, in which case, if you don't get very many emails to do, then you won't have to shell out very much cash. Yeah. And if you are selling more, then you might want to have someone on a retainer monthly, and then it might work out cheaper, or it's peace of mind, I guess, as well.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Let's wrap that there. How's the best way people can reach you?
Easiest way to reach me now is at my Amazon Japan blog. It is thejapanguy.jp.
Excellent.
.jp at the end there is important, not .com. Different guy.
And email address people can reach on?
Well, there's a contact form there, or it's info@thejapanguy.jp. All one word.
Excellent. Nick, thanks for coming in. Guys, thank you for your ears. Don't forget, if this is your first time, hit the subscribe button. Other than that, we'll see you again soon. Take care.